Hello everyone, how are you doing today? I'm your course instructor. Now, today we are going to learn about the software development cycle or called SDLC. It is structured process of developing a software to make it more simple. Now, let's start today's class. Let's imagine we are a company that manufactures pen. We produce new type of pen. So we will follow each stage of SDLC as if we are developing and manufacturing a pen. So let's assume there are some business-minded people, like these people are the business people. Okay, business people. Now, they are the business-minded individuals who had a clear vision for the future and want to make it reality. So let's go to the first stage. It's called requirement analysis phase. This is the very first phase of SDLC. Here our main goal is to understand what exactly we are going to build and who will use it. Imagine we want to make a new pen. We need to understand questions uh, like suppose one, what kind of pen people need? What kind of pen people need? Then who um, wait um, who will be our target? Okay, so the let's talk about the role of the business people. The role of the business people have a lot of responsibilities, okay? Like uh, responsibilities can be like they have staffing and operations, like they need to recruit, manage employees, and they need legal and compliance issues. They also need to generate cash flows and maximize revenues. So, since they can do everything on their own, they decide to hire someone to help manage these tasks and turn their visions into realities. So, now let's talk about why the business people are also called clients or customers. They can be called clients or customers. You might wonder why we sometimes refer to them as clients or customers. Although they are the ones starting the business, they represent the end customer's interest, as they are responsible for requirements that make the product desirable. Now let's introduce ourselves with the product owner. The business be people hires product owner. Product owner. This product owner acts as a bridge between the business's vision and the team that will build the pen. But before hiring, they need to prepare a critical document that outlines what they want with the product. And this document is called CRS, Client Requirement Specifications. Okay, so it is the blueprint that captures the needs and expectations of the business for the pen. It includes customer demands and needs. It includes customer needs. It also has product, oh sorry, um, let me delete it. It also has product features and motivation for purchase. The customer demand defines what the customer wants, and the feature like what kind of feature we need to add to the pen, and motivational factors are like why would they want to buy this pen, okay? In short, this CRS document contains everything about the business believe will make the pen desirable or successful. Now let's identify the end users. The people who will use the pen are the end users. They are the general customers will make the pen desirable and successful. Okay. Now let's define user stories. User stories. So user stories are like suppose the product owner takes the CRS and decides to make it more detailed. They break down the requirements into smaller specific goals that's called user stories. These stories help us to clarify what features we need each user expects from the pen. Suppose, um, let's see, let's see this. It says the user wants to make a pen that people can write it. People will have a transparent white cap and a non-refillable body with company label, and it will have thin ballpoint. so that handwriting becomes smooth and clear. It will come with multiple attractive color designs. Here, the transparent cap. As a user, I want a transparent cap so that I can see the color of the pen. Then, non-refillable body with company label. As a user, I want a non-refillable body with a company label so that I can recognize the brand. The thin ballpoint is needed for smooth and clear handwriting. And as a user, I also want multiple colors so that I can choose my favorite ones. Each user story addresses a single requirement from the CRS and focuses on how it benefits the end users. Now, creating a product backlog. The product owner compiles the stories into the thing called product backlog. This backlog is prioritized list for all the features and specifications that needed for the pen. High priority features that are listed at the top and less critical features are listed at the bottom. The product backlog acts as a roadmap. Product backlog acts as a roadmap. Okay. Now the product owner has two main responsibilities. He has to define user stories and create the product backlog. For defining the user stories, product owner needs to break down the CRS into user stories that focus on what the end user needs. And creating the product backlog, the product owner needs to organize those user stories in a prioritizing list to guide the development of the team. Now, let's talk about product owner and the key roles in product management. Okay. There are two types of people, product owner and product manager. The difference between a product owner and product managers is product owner oversees the broader vision, concept, and multiple projects if needed. They are ultimately responsible for the product's success or failure. Whereas the product manager focuses on managing a single project, handling deadlines, budget, etc. For example, if the being developed is a pen, the product owner will be responsible for ensuring it meets the company's vision. Whereas the project manager, sorry, would focus on specific project tasks like staying on budget, meeting deadlines, etc. Now, user stories can be broken into different type of requirement specifications um, like let me they can be FRS, FRS is called Functional Requirement Specification. It describes the performance and functions of a product, like for a pen, how it feels to write with. And it also focuses the user experience and expectations from the product. And the second one is called Technical Requirement Specification. It outlines the technical details necessary for product development, such as materials, specifications, and dimensions. It is typically prepared by the development team or a technical business analyst. Now let's talk about technical requirement specification. When we talk about technical specs, we are looking at the specifics that define how something is made or works. For example, if we are discussing a pen, we might need to know what type of plastic used to make a pen, the machines used in manufactures, or the dimensions of the cap. These are all technical specs, and they are all covered in TRS, Technical Requirement Specification. Now, the responsibility of handling this document can vary. Sometimes developers are in charge of it, sometimes business analyst takes care of it. There are no strict rules here. It depends on the company. But their main goal is to ensure that document specifies all technical details. Now let's move on to business requirements specifications called BRS. It consists of three key parts. It consists of three key parts like um, user story, scenario, and acceptance criteria. Now, user story. The user story is where we describe the feature or capability that needs to be tested. For instance, imagine we have a pen with a transparent cap. A user story could look like this. As a user, I want to use a pen with a transparent cap. Suppose wait a minute. Suppose this can be a user story, okay? Here, as a user, I want to use a pen with a transparent cap so that I can see the color of the pen easily. The key feature we are testing here is the transparent cap. Now for scenario. The scenario outlines the objective for testing. It answers the question like what needs to be tested. They directly derive from the user story. They describe the conditions under what feature will be tested. Then, for example, a scenario could read, given a pen has a transparent cap, when the user places the cap on the pen's body, then the user should be able to see the ink's color. Notice the structure of the scenario. Given the precondition, the pen has a transparent cap. When we describe the action like placing the cap on the pen, then the outlines the expected outcome. The user sees the ink's color. The this pattern is known as given when format. Okay. Now the third one, acceptance criteria. This is where we define the set of conditions that must be met for the product to be considered successful. These are the conditions that must be satisfied to meet the requirements of the project. Okay. For example, the acceptance criteria for our pen could be the cap should be so strong that it doesn't break easily, and the size of the cap should fit perfectly into the pen body. If the product meets this condition, is considered successful. Now, let's talk about the role of the project team. Project team. Earlier, I mentioned that the product owner hires two people, the business analysts and the project manager. We have talked about the business analyst and their roles in preparing BRS. What about the project manager? What they do? The project manager hires a special team to handle the different specs of the program. He hires um, he hires architects, then developers, and testers. Architects are the designer of the blueprint of the project. Think of it like a blueprint for a building. They create the structure and define how everything should fit together. And the developers are responsible for actually building the product. They take the architect's design and turn it into a working project, which could be the pen in our case. They handle the construction part of our project. And finally, the testers. Testers are the one who verify that the project works accordingly to the specifications. They run tests to ensure everything functions as it should before the product release. So the architects design, the developers build, and the testers ensure everything works perfectly. Now, let's talk about the role of the architects in the process. Architects are responsible for designing the system and following the technical requirements. The TRS contains all the necessary details about the technical aspects of the product. Suppose TRS, TRS. It includes like how it should perform, then functions, and other critical technical requirements. Other technical critical requirements. Okay. So the architect refers to this TRS to ensure the product is designed according to the specific technical needs. They are going to look at it as the blueprint for what is needed. Now, do you know what they're going to do next? They are going to prepare another document called the design document. It's called the design document. It is an important term and it's not something made up. A design document is essentially a record of the design. It can be the form of a drawing or written descriptions, but its purpose is to give us a clear outline of what we need to build. Now, what do they do with it? The developers use it to build the product. The product is built based on the guidelines set in the design document. So uh, to break it down, first the architect takes the TRS. Then they prepare the design documents. And from that, the developers use the design document to build a product. Right? Build a product. Do you understand now? Okay. Now the testing process. Now let's go into the role of the testers. Testers are responsible for ensuring that everything is in order of the product. They make sure the right amount of materials and supplies were used as planned and that they meet the correct specifications. This means checking the size, consistency, structure, and surface of the product. In essence, the testers verify that the product matches the expected technical and quality standards. Now, the hiring process of the testers team is usually dictated by the project manager. First, he hires the QA manager, QA manager, QA manager, then test lead, then types of tester, then automation tester, manual tester and take lead. Okay, the QA manager is the senior most important position um, for the testing department. Then the test lead. Under the QA manager, the test lead is in charge of leading the testers. There are two types of testers, automation testers and manual testers. Automation testers focus on automating the testing process to run tests more efficiently. And the manual testers manually runs tests to ensure the product functions as expected. And lastly, the technical lead is the head of the developer team. They oversee the technical side of the project, ensuring developers meet the project's requirements. Okay, now let's talk about what is manual testing and automatic testing. In manual testing, testers are like humans reading a book and finding mistakes one by one without missing any details. It's a time-consuming process and testers might get tired over time. Since it's done by hand, the chances of missing small issues are low. Whereas the automation testing is like a robot reading the book at super speed. It can go on for hours without getting tired, but it might miss some details due to the limitation of automation. They take advantage from this by speeding up the process and reducing human efforts, but it can't catch everything. In essence, manual testing is slower but accurate, while the automation test is faster but maybe can have some issues. Um, I told you about the developers building about after the building product, it goes to testers. It can be both manual testers or automation testers. Okay. Mm. Now let's move on to test case. Let's look at a simple user story. Like, mm, suppose, suppose as a user, I want a pen, right? I want a pen with a transparent cap so that I can see the color of the pen ink. Okay. Now, in this case, the main focus of the user story is the transparent cap. This is the key feature we need to test, right? So the test scenario here would be focused on testing the transparency of the cap. Now let's discuss test scenarios. What kind of test scenario? The test scenario defines the focus of the test. In this example, the focus is on the transparency of the cap. We identify the test scenario, we move on to writing the test case. The test case is where we define the steps to validate the test scenario. So for the transparency cap, we would have followed the following steps. First, the test scenario, test scenario, then test case. On the test scenario, we test the transparency of the pen's cap. And for test case, we place the transparent cap on top of the pen and look at the pen. The color of the pen should be visible. So now you can see the difference between test scenario and test case. Now let's talk about the manual testing where there are no machines involved. Here the tester physically checks the product. In our example, when checking transparency, you simply look at the cap and confirm whether the pen color is visible. It's a straightforward task. Now let's think about manual testing, something like the width of the pen. To manually check the width of the pen, you need to hold the pen in your hand and take a measurement tool like a ruler and measure the width of the pen, okay, and compare it to the expected value. The process of writing down the steps to check something is what we call test steps. These are the individual actions you take as a part of a larger test case. So in a manual testing, you will identify the test scenario, write out the test case with specific steps, and then perform those steps one by one. Even though this is manual testing, if we were to perform the same test using automation, the process would look quite similar. But instead of using your hand, you'd use automated tools or scripts to run the test. The tests would still be same, but automation would execute them at a faster rate. So from this, the key takeaway here is that both manual testing and automation testing follows the same fundamental process. First, you identify the test scenario, then you define the test case. After that, you break it down to test steps, whether you do this manually or through automated scripts. The core structure is the same. The difference is how you execute them. So I hope that clears up the distinction between the manual and the automated test. Now let's see automation testing process. Mm, Automation testing process. When moving to automation testing, the process changes slightly in terms how the test steps are executed. As I've said before, instead of performing the steps manually, you write scripts in a programming language to run the tests. For example, for testing the pen is placed inside a machine. Then the measurement of the pen's weight or other properties is calculated by the system. Measurement is calculated by system, and then the result is displayed in screen. Screen. So once the script automatically runs, it displays the results on the screen. This approach allows the test to run faster and more consistently. Now let's dive into how we would create test cases based on the user story. I'll walk you through the process. Let's make the example of a pen, and we'll break it down step by step, focusing on specific parts like the pen's body or the cap. For step one, for step one, um, step one, we need to understand the user story. We need to first read the user story carefully. It's essential that we understand the context of what's being tested. Suppose, mm, suppose this is a user story. Okay, it says, as a user, I want to use a non-refillable pen with a company label on the body so that I can identify the company brand. So here the focus is on the pen body and company level. So the focus is on the is it pen body and company. Sorry, uh, company level. So, which means the visibility of the level and its placement are our main areas to test. Now, for step two, we need to create test scenario. Okay, it's a bit blurry. Sorry for that. The test scenario is based on the user story, which is pen's body visibility and the level placement. So, body visibility and the level placement. This means we'll test if the label is clearly visible, correctly placed, and free of spelling errors. For step three, we need to break down the acceptance criteria. The acceptance criteria help us to determine if the test case is valid. For example, here the acceptance criteria could be the company label must be visible clearly. The label must not peel off or fade away. The company name must be spelled correctly. Now, based on this acceptance criteria, sorry, we need to write our test case. So for test case one, we need to validate label, visibility, and spelling. Um, so to ensure that we need to ensure that the company level is visible, correctly placed, and free from defects such as incorrect spelling or fading. So so for this, the test scenario would be pen body level visibility. For step one, take the pen in the hand, inspect the pen body closely, specify the level. Now for step three, we need to verify the company name on the label is clearly visible. For step four, we need to check if the company name is spelled correctly. And for step five, we need to ensure the level is securely placed and hasn't peeled off. So the result should be the level should be legible, the company is correctly spelled, and the level is not peeling off. Now for step five, we need to run the test. To run the test, we need to follow the action step by step, starting from holding the pen to checking the level. Each of these steps will lead you to the expected outcome. Um, like for step one, we need to take the pen. For step two, we need to look at the company level. For step three, we need to read the company name. If it's visible and readable, we need to move on to the next step. For step four, we need to check the spelling of the name. If there are any typing mistakes, then it should be a defect. For step five, make sure the label is secured. Now, let's write a second test case based on another acceptance criteria like the label should last long and should not peel off. Okay, to run this test, we need to follow the actions. We need to hold the pen in our hand. We need to look at the label. We need to read the company name. We need to check the spelling. We need to make sure the label is visible. Now, let's go to test case 2. Hmm, For test case 2, we need to test case 2. We need to validate the durability. So for this, we need to take the pen, observe the placement, simulate normal usage for 1 to 2 weeks, check if the label starts to peel off or fade off right after regular use, and if it does, we need to report it as defects. So we should expect that the label should be intact. Now we need to test other features mm, like suppose this one. It says we need to check if the pen is smooth enough. So let's move on to another test case where the pen's ballpoint performance is tested. Specifically, we'll test if the line skips while we write. So test case 3. mm, For test case 3, wait. For we need to check the ballpoint. For this, we need to take the pen in our hand, take a piece of paper, and start writing. And check if the ink flows smoothly without skipping. We need to try writing for a longer duration to ensure there are no skips. If the ink skips, note it as a failure. So, if the ink skips, failure. So we need to expect that the pen should write smoothly without any ink skipping. Now we need to test the complete pen. Now we have created and executed individual test case for each part of the pen. We need to now look for system integration testing or SIT. We'll talk about it later. This means testing the complete pen once all parts are assembled. Suppose um, the pen is assembled. Like here is the cap, here is the pen body, and here is the nib. So we need to check if all the parts are assembled correctly. Sorry. We need to check if all the parts are assembled correctly, and we need to check if the pen cap is fitting securely. We need to test if the ball pointing flows properly, and we need to confirm the level is remaining visible and intact. Now we need to test another example. We need to test the cap strength. So for testing the cap strength, test caps strength. Let's talk an example from earlier. We are testing the strength of the pen cap. It involves determining whether the cap is strong enough to withstand pressure without breaking. Acceptance criteria. It should be the cap should be strong enough to not break easily. Test scenario. For test scenario, we were focusing on the cap itself. First, we take the cap out of the pen. We test its flexibility by pressing and twisting, and we try to break the cap to see how strong it is to resist our force. If the cap remains intact after this, the result is a success. If it breaks, the test fails, and we need to debug and investigate the issue. So now, what happens when a defect is found? If the pen's cap breaks during the test, it indicates a defect. A defect means defect. It means that the product didn't meet the quality standards. Here are the process for handling a defect. So to handle defect, we need to identify the defect. Identify. Here the tester finds that the cap is fragile and breaks under pressure. And now we need to inform. We need to inform this defect to the test lead immediately with reports so that he can take action. Then the third step is contact developers. Now the test lead discusses this issue with the developers. Now fixing the issue. After consulting the developer, they address the defect and make necessary changes. For the final stage, rerun tests. After fixing the issue, the developer will now rerun those tests again. So, to see if the problem is solved. A defect is like finding a bug in your bed. Just like you don't want a bug in your bed because it causes discomfort, you want you don't want to you don't want any defects in your product because it can lead to customer dissatisfaction. Defects are considered a major issue, and handling them quickly is crucial to maintain the quality of the product. In this case, once a defect is found, the team will go to the process of fixing it, ensuring the product is free for free of errors. Now for the communication with developers. When a defect is discovered, the tester communicates with the test lead, who then works with the developers to find a solution. Developers will correct the issue and ensure that the product passes the necessary tests. This close collaboration ensures the product meets quality standards before it is released. So here the tester, test lead, developers, all these are correlated. They form a bonding to ensure that the product is maintained with quality standards. Now let's talk a bit about developer environment. In dev environment. In the developer environment, the individual components of the pen like cap, body, etc. are tested separately. Once all the components are assembled, we move to the system integration environment where the complete pen is tested as a whole. Now, You should now be able to follow the same structures for any product. Understand the user story, break it down to the test scenarios, write test cases based on acceptance criteria, and then test the individual components before an integration test. So let's say you have run all the tests on the cab, body, and the ball part. So now you are integrating all the component. If one part doesn't fit another, what do you think that means for the project? Is it successful or is it a defect? It's a defect and the product is not ready. In this case, the product needs to be remanufactured. Once the issue is fixed, you will run the tests again, so where it went wrong and ensure everything was smoothly. After fixing the defect, we perform overall testings to ensure all the components are integrated properly. Now let's talk about system integration testing. SIT. It's all about the overall product where all components are tested separately. We bring them together to ensure they function correctly as a whole. If everything is working perfectly, it's a good to go. And we move on to the next stage called user acceptance training testing, UAT. So what is a UAT? UAT. UAT is the final step before releasing the product to the public. This stage is where the business people or the clients come in. They are the one who will purchase the product, not the end users. In the context of a pen, for example, it would be the business people who planned and funded the factory that makes the pen. So what do the business people do in UAT? They test the product from the end user's perspective. They want to make sure that the pen, for instance, meet their business goals. It should generate expected cash flow and serve the purpose it was designed for. This is their way of validating the product against the business requirements. If they find a problem during UAT, who do you think they will blame? They won't blame the developers, they will blame the testers because they were the last ones to check if everything works correctly. If everything passed up to UAT, the testers must have done their job well. However, if something goes wrong, the testers are always accountable. So it's critical to double check everything before passing to the UAT. Sometimes the business people may not be technical experts, so they will ask you, the testers, to conduct performance testing. For example, if for Facebook, if Mark Zuckerberg wants to test if it can handle thousands of users, we simulate the traffic using testing tools to see if the system can handle the load. If it performs well, then we move to pre-production. The pre-production is the pre-production. The pre-production is the stage where the product is nearly ready. Testers run final checks to ensure everything is working as expected before it goes to production. In production, the product is marketed and then delivered to the customers. Then we go to the maintenance phase. This is where the maintenance team comes in. They monitor the product post-launch to ensure it's being used properly and report any issues back to the developers or the testers. If the customers encounter any problem, the maintenance team ensures those issues are fixed. Okay, so to make a summary, there are several stages of product development and testing, like development, SIT, UAT, pre-production, production, and maintenance. So these are the things that concludes product development. The product is created and individual parts are tested on the development stage. Then all components are integrated and tested as a whole in the system integration testing or SIT. Then the business people validate the product against business requirements on user acceptance training UAT. After that, the final checks are performed in pre-production stage. Then the product is marketed and delivered in production. After that, the maintenance, post-launch monitors, and bug fixes. So this is an idea about how this works. Remember, whether it's PAN or software, understanding the development process can lead to a better and more successful products. Thank you for following along. Hope to see you in the next class.